get used to all this equipment, sorry. Um, Good afternoon. Welcome to today's meeting, of course. Just to remind you that it is. You all agreed that you were here at the last record alignment. Please.
Chairman, we've got apologies from councillors Allen, Bond, Bennett, King and Parish.
And do we have any declarations of interest, please? We're going to talk to by Jenny first, aren't we, Jenny? Item number 4, health safety policy.
Thank you, Chair, and good afternoon. The purpose of the report update with regard to the health and safety policy is there overall relating to their internal health and safety of and build. We're required to review the policy regularly, generally cycle. So there are no major changes, but we have made a couple of updates, generally to reflect conditions, but also one of the changes slightly the health and safety. Number of years, steering group, which is very well attended by representatives, and executive members. Well, what we've decided, the better way to that group phases that deals with operational accidents, share good occasions, we measures a good practice and good between the individuals. And we've introduced a strategic which will sort of steering group focus on steer, manage, and that group actors, directors, of them. Higher risk level. So the policy itself, attached in the documentation, it's fresh new law, main content of it, actually. Thank you. That
Read, sorry. All the information that you sent out with our papers. So if you do have any questions, now is your time to ask Jenny before she goes back. Dr. Harrison.
Thank you very much. a good piece of work, and these things are all, I dare say, labour of love, but that's probably incorrect. But they're certainly a major undertaking. It's really about section 5 of the policy where it says auditing and review. And it's just quite rightly points out that an independent audit by someone who's got an expert and review in this area is something that should be undertaken. I'm a bit concerned because it says when deemed necessary, which is, dare I say, a little woolly. And as a subsidiary observation slash question would be, when did that last happen? Thanks.
Through the summer period, as part of the insurance renewal process, travellers, air insurers came in and conducted an independent review of our health and safety. We had an excellent report, to be honest. There was just a couple of very minor recommendations to be implemented and completed, and also our own internal audit periodically look at health and safety as well. That's on the sort of schedule, the ongoing schedule, and we're due to be audited in the new year.
Thanks.
Happy with that, Councillor Harrison. No more questions, comments? Thank you, Jenny. If you must, you may leave us. Thank you. So now we're moving on to the Elections Act update. Becky Harris, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, everyone. So today I'm just going to talk about the Elections Act. So it's an act really in two halves. So we've already had the first tranche of changes, which was voter ID, which was implemented in May. So successfully we got through that part of the act. The second part of the act is probably where some of the more trickier things are now going to start to come in. So the first one today is really to update you on the absent voting changes that are going to come in force for A 2024. So all absent votes now, apart from emergency proxy applications, must contain a national insurance number, or they must provide a reason why one cannot be provided. So normally what we receive in the office is a paper application which we have to process. Going forward from 31st of October, this is now online. A bit similar to when someone actually applies to register to vote, they have to provide their name, their address, their date of birth, and their national insurance number. And what happens is that information that then gets sent up to DWP, sent back to us, and I'd have agreed to say it's matched, or actually no, we need to request a little bit more information from them. If we need more information, they can send some documentary evidence, or they can also provide an attestation form to us as well. So the government have developed a new website, so the address is included in the report. And again, we're just providing that information, on our website, on our social media channels, just to try and get that message out as far and wide as we can in anticipation of the inevitable general election by January 2025. So just to confirm, electors can apply online now, and they can also apply through the paper application for a postal vote, a one-off proxy vote. That could be for a particular election because they could be on holiday or they could be away for work. Or they can apply for a proxy application for a definite or indefinite period overseas and service electors. So far we've had 2 electors who have successfully used our online system, and we've also had 2 people that have applied, but their application is pending because they're yet to register to vote. So once they register to vote, then we'll go in and obviously make sure that that application is processed at the same time as well. So just wanted to touch base on the maximum period of absent vote applications because that has also changed. So you can have a postal vote for a particular poll. So it could be for the Police, Fire and Crime Commission next year. Somebody knows that they're on holiday, so they want their postal vote directed somewhere else. Or they can have it for a definite period of time. So this could be someone who's working away for 12 months who just lets us know that they want their postal vote to go somewhere else, or a maximum period of up to 3 years, which is a change from the 5-year period that has been in place before. So for those electors who apply for an online postal vote now, they can actually only hold their postal vote to the 3rd, 31st of January every year. So what will happen is if you have a postal vote that's already been in place prior to 31st of October, there's going to be transitional arrangements. So the 3rd, 31st, it gets very confusing. It's almost going to be on a rolling programme on when we're having to write to these people to say, you need to update your signature, refresh with us, and also reapply for a new. In terms of proxy voters, there's also been changes to those. So all existing proxy voters, so anyone that has an arrangement with us at the moment, we will write to them December this year, and we also will write to them again in January to say you need to update your records with us, and if you need to review or change any of your proxy arrangements, you can do so at that point. In terms of changes to proxy vote limits, this has also changed. So from the 1st to 31st of October, you can now no longer be a proxy, you can only be a proxy for 4 electors. The last bit of the report, I've just included a bit more information about overseas electors, but in summary, the 15-year rule will end January 2024. Chair.
Well, off me to question. Let's say we've got 83,000 electors that live in 83,000 houses, to make it easy. Surely it's easy now to pinpoint void houses the electoral register seeing. Number 2's on, 4's on, 6's on, 8 isn't, and 10's on. Do we not target these houses to try and get them onto the electoral register?
Yeah, so we're just concluding our canvas at the moment. So as part of our canvas, we've actually wrote out to those households that aren't on the list. So again, this is all matched with DWP data. So the postal voting and proxy vote arrangements is separate to that. But we certainly target those households that haven't responded to us. We've just finished our telephone canvassing. So what happens is all of those households, they're mapped on our software system, which is called Express. And we have a list of all those, the non-responders, the people that, when we match it against council tax as well, we double check the records just to make sure that all of our records are up to date. But certainly we do everything we can to make sure all of those people are registered. But what you do find is when you do have a general election called, you do naturally see a jump up in registrations. So they do tend to drop off after that point, but certainly we do everything we can to make sure that those electors are up to date.
And finally, what is the turnaround once you fill the forms in and if everything's okay, not one of those that get deferred, more information? How quick is the turnaround to get onto the electoral register now?
Yeah, it's about 2 days turnaround at the moment.
With that, good. Thank you. Dr. Tate. Oh, Councillor Reid.
Yeah, I'm just interested really in the proxy voting. What is the criteria for someone to be eligible to be a proxy voter? If they're voting on behalf of somebody else. Suspicious part. How does the person know that's going to use the other person's proxy vote? Sure that they're going to vote. They want to.
It's just purely done on trust. So when you appoint a proxy, you vote for others.
Sorry, yeah.
When you appoint a proxy voter to vote on your behalf, that's obviously done as an element of trust. So you're trusting that when they're in that ballot booth, that they're voting based on your interests.
Yes.
You mentioned
Dr. Taylor, yeah.
it's changing from a 5 to 3 year. So if you have got your vote, as it were, now on that system, but you're outside that, you're on the 4th year, do you have to redo it, or is it so you have to start all over again because you've changed it retrospectively? As a lot of people think I've got it for 5 years, and therefore it's going to carry on for 5 years without having to come back to you to do it again. Do you see where I'm coming from? It's a bit confusing.
Yeah, the transitional arrangements are slightly confusing. When your eligibility period runs out, we will write to you to let you know that you now need to reapply for your postal vote or proxy vote.
Even if you consider that it's I've got it for 5 years, so that it becomes null and void, that system now, the 5 years totally out. Thank you.
That's right, yeah.
Anyone else? Yes, Dr. Harrison.
Thank you. Sorry, Chair. I think I'm obscured from your direct line of sight. Um, it struck me that this was a much more complicated system than perhaps we'd had in the past. And when I was reading the paper and I looked through and I got the section, I think it was 4.5, and then I got to 4.6, and then I had to go back to 4.5 to see which groups people might be in, etc. It does worry me a little bit that given some of the people who've been most in need of a proxy vote and or a postal vote, this might be quite hard for some of these people to navigate, especially people who may be quite old and not perhaps have ready access to things like their national insurance number, etc. So I just wonder what else we can do, and I know you're going to write to some residents to try and facilitate people being able to take advantage of proxy votes or postal votes. Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the election community as a whole, we fed that back to DLUC and said, actually, for those, residents who are in care homes, that is a big area of concern. So at the moment, DLUC are looking at kind of other options that we've got available to try and make sure that those people aren't disenfranchised.
No one else? Dr. Taylor, yes.
Just supposing we have a snap election before May, will you all be ready, and will we be ready for that, or in the anticipation of political things changing?
Afternoon, members. One of the roles as part of the election team is to ensure that we have reasonable facilities for voting and that polling places are accessible to all electors. So as part of that, we hold polling districts and polling places reviews, and that's kind of why we're here today, is just to give you a bit of an update on the most recent one that we have just undertaken. Now, we are required to do a polling district and place review every 5 years as a local authority. Our last compulsory one was actually finished in January 2023, so that we had all our stations, sorted for the locals in May that we just held. However, the Boundary Commission for England have just completed a review of parliamentary boundaries, and they've published their final recommendation. So on the back of that report, we saw it's important to hold a polling district and place review as soon as possible, so that we can ensure that all our polling places are correct and appropriate before the next parliamentary election. Now, as many of you will be aware, because of the repeal of the Fixed Term Parliamentaries Act, we don't actually know the exact date of when the next parliamentary election could be. We just know it will be held any time before the 28th of January 2025. That's the last day it can be held. So we're very keen to hold review as soon as possible so that we can get all our polling districts and places sorted before any potential parliamentary election, and also knowing that we have a police and crime commissioner election that will be held in May 2024. Now, off the back of the boundary review report, the good news is there is no change to our polling district boundaries, so we don't particularly have to worry about that. In fact, probably only the biggest change that most residents will notice will be the different name that their constituency will now hold. The names have completely changed, so the South Staffordshire constituency has changed to the Kings Winford and South Staffordshire constituency, and the Old Stafford constituency is now Stone, Great Worley and Penkridge constituency. But once again, there was no change to our polling district boundaries. So in our keenness, we have launched a notice on the 13th of November. Full details of that are available on our council website and notice boards. The review is being promoted on social media. I believe we had a post that went out today. It's also being promoted through our news roundups. They should be heading out tomorrow, our news roundups. And information on the proposed scheme by the acting returning officer, so that's Dave Hayward, is also available on the website during the review. So we're very keen during this polling districts and place review to kind of consult and engage with as many people as possible, because as you can imagine, we're keen to get the views of everyone who will vote, so that stations are appropriate for everyone. So as part of the consultation, we are trying to engage with local government electors and residents of the district, parish and town councils, district councillors, county councillors, members of parliament, local public and voluntary organisations, local disability groups, polling place, venues, political parties. We're going to be trying to engage with them throughout the consultation period, which ends on the 11th of December. Now, following our elections, we regularly review recommendations from the polling inspectors, from our presiding officers and any candidates about our polling stations. And following the May elections, which we have had, we're only currently proposing one change to the current stations. I'll just inform you which one that is. So it is in the Kings Winford and South Staffordshire constituency, polling district RAA, Purton East. We propose that it moves from the Purton Pavilion and Scout Club on Gainsborough Drive, Purton, and that it moves to the Lakeside Hall in the Purton Civic Centre on Church Road. Now, this change was recommended particularly from our presiding officers in the station that have worked there before, mainly due to poor accessibility at night, and particularly in wet weather. When we went to inspect it, it was on a particular windy and wet day, and my smart shoes were definitely not appropriate attire for the venture to get there. Furthermore, we were unable to actually use the building for the locals elections in May, and we actually had to make a bit of a last minute change to that station. So the Lakeside Hall was actually used in May for that area. And on the back of that, we had many compliments about the Lakeside Hall being used. So we feel it's appropriate that instead of the Scout Hut, which isn't always the easiest accessible place, that it be moved to Lakeside Hall, which we have experience of it being a good and successful venue at the election. So that is our only recommended current change. Following approval from the Standards and Resources Committee on January 26th, so once the consultation is finished and we take in all the submissions and finalise the report, it will come back to you on January the 26th. Following that, we'll publish a notice of conclusion of the review on the council's website and take any associated actions and provide a link to the report, which shows all the correspondence we received as part of the review. Just to make you all aware, members, that any submissions, they need to be sent in via the submission forms, which are provided on our website. And when we are engaging with residents throughout the district, we'll make sure that they are aware that they need to be done on the submission form for them to be published. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Are there any questions or comments, Councillor Brindle?
Tom, is there a distance that a parishioner can walk to a polling station? Or what is the excess that is said that we ought to put a polling station there because they're walking a mile and a half to the polling station? Or what is the distance?
Yeah, there is no set distance in legislation. It's basically put down as a reasonable distance to walk. So it's really kind of up to us to make sure that it is kind of in that neutral location. We tend to not put them in far out places as part of that. So there is no set distance. It's kind of up to us as we feel appropriate for most residents.
Tom, I've lived in Featherstone all my life, and at Brinsford, which is just a mile down the road, there were 60 houses, and they used to have a polling station. Then it went to 80 houses, and they didn't have a polling station. Then it went to 103 houses, and now we've just had another 90 houses. and we still don't have a polling station. So when we had less, it was better, but now it's more, it's worse. I just can't see the logic. And that's the biggest argument I have, is why haven't we, Rinsford, got a polling station? And I keep saying, it's, I don't know.
Yeah, we'll definitely take that feedback with us, and we'll have a look into it today. Obviously, I would recommend if you can think of any polling places, please send in a submission, but we will note that and we'll go and have a look at that for you.
Bring up, yes, okay. Robert, sorry. Councillor Reid.
I think in the past, sometimes we've had difficulty with getting people to agree to their premises being used as a polling station. I think of 2 schools now where people seem to be very keen, but others don't. So that is a problem in that although we've used them in the past, it doesn't mean to say we can automatically use them for the forthcoming polling station. And the other one is, now that the parliamentary area includes Kings Winford, which is Dudley, and we're going to consult, are we consulting them through the South Staffordshire website, our website? How are we going to actually engage them?
So Dudley, they will hold their own polling districts in place review, to which it will be up to us to make recommended comments on those. We do not have ownership, I can put it that way, of their polling stations. That's not necessarily for us to decide where they are. So as Dudley hold their review, which they will also be holding one, we will make comments on them if we see fit and appropriate.
I'm pleased about that.
Thank you. Are there any more comments or questions for Tom? No? You're going to leave us now, Tom and Vicky? Right. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. So now we're moving on to item 8, which, 7, which is customer feedback policy. Kevin Hubery. Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you, Chair. The report here presents the committee with the customer feedback policy, which is Appendix 1. This policy has been introduced alongside a new procedure and a new online system for managing customer complaints, comments and compliments. The current policy was adopted in 2014, and the main changes are set out in section 3. So there'll be a new online dedicated form made available on the council website for people to complete, whether it be a complaint, compliment or comment. And this is being used to manage those interactions with customers. Emphasise the third bullet point there, all of the channels for making complaints, compliments and comments will still be available. So people will still be able to make in-person representations, email, social media, or even write to us by letter. So all those channels are still available to people. It's not just about an online form. What will happen with any other interactions is they'll be inputted to the system by officers, and this enables to do better analysis of comments, compliments, complaints through the new online system. The other significant change to the policy being recommended is the time scale limit to make a complaint reduces from 12 months to 3 months. This is in line with other organisations that we've reviewed as part of the policy review. Obviously, if there are exceptional circumstances, that timescale can be extended further. But the standard 3 months from the matter being referred to is being reduced. So the policy is there in Appendix 1 to the report. If there are any questions, happy to take them.
Are there any questions on the floor, Kevin? No? Thanks, Kevin.
Thank you.
Thank you. Down to you, over to you. Ray.
Thank you, Chairman. So members, the usual update report. The first thing to say is obviously, as with lots of these things, it is already out of date from the time of writing to the time of presenting this afternoon. So the report refers to there being 2 code of conduct complaints. There's actually only one now. One has been resolved without a need for an investigation or a hearing. So that code of conduct complaint has been closed. So I only currently have one code of conduct complaint, which is still at that initial assessment stage and relates to a parish council member. There's been one new decision from the local government ombudsman, which is attached as Appendix 1 to your report. That was in relation to a planning application, and members will see from the LGO decision. The council had already offered an apology and amended its procedure before the complaint went to the ombudsman, and the ombudsman found that with sufficient remedy, no further action was required. It was a point around reconsultation on a variation of an application, but as I say, that point has been picked up now. With regard to formal complaints, as Kevin just said, we have a complaints procedure. It's a 2-stage complaint procedure. Report stage 2 complaints through to this committee, but can confirm that so far this municipal year there have been no complaints upheld at stage 2 of the process. Finally, members, the work programme is as set out with the slight amendment that has wound up escaped your attention. There's been an additional item added to the agenda for today, the polling station review. So as always, members, we set out the programme, but inevitably it does change and vary throughout the year. If members have anything they do want for consideration, then they would go through the chairman. But at your next meeting, you'll get a further update on the Elections Act, on any further provisions of relevance there, and you will get the polling station review report as well, post consultation. So happy to take any questions, Chairman.
Dr. Taylor, yes.
The complaints procedure, which was just outlined there, which is very good, the 3-month, is it the same complaints procedure if I complain about a district or a parish council or whatever, or is that a totally different system and timing?
It is totally separate. So the complaints procedure for the council is around service complaints or indeed officer complaints. If it's a member related complaint about member conduct, then that's dealt with under the code of conduct regime and it is completely separate. There isn't a set time limit within that. There is a reasonable time limit that as a monitoring officer, I can dismiss a complaint if I think it's too far back in time, and therefore it would be unjust to take it forward.
No. Bradford.